We say prayers at night to wish the gods of money, Dan, good luck in his financing.
The money guy.
Hey everybody, Paul here. I'm here with my my man Dan, the guy who gives us all the money. We say prayers at night to wish the gods of money, Dan, good luck in his financing.
The money guy. The money guy is very popular. We all know that. The money guy is very popular.
Well,
it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be a great masterclass, and we're picking on an important topic. The reality is, Dan, you tell me if my assumptions are correct here. I'd say from all the investors that we work with, and there's hundreds of them, that 7 out of 10, maybe 6 or 7 out of 10, 60, 70% of them are starting out or at some point in their investing career, leveraging their line of credit on their personal home to either start investing or continue investing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Leveraging the equity, not only in an owner occupied, but in rentals, as you mentioned, people come back when they own rentals, is not only an option, but a great option for people investing. Oftentimes we'll get asked the question, we'll have clients come to us with, maybe 100,000, 150,000 in checkings or savings and a ton of equity in their home. And they say, I'm looking to buy this property. I'm going to use the checkings and savings. We'll suggest for various reasons to use the equity in your house, get the money, the cash, and invest it in something else, but use the equity in your house to buy real estate.
And that's a fantastic point, and segues to one of the questions I want to talk to you about, that there's decided advantages to using that. Even though there are interest payments, there are several ways to negate the interest payment to make sure it's not a negative or a red on your balance books. And that's all details we're going to cover in this masterclass. So there's a lot of people out there sitting there with $300, $400, $500 or more $1,000 of equity sitting there idle, doing nothing, unused, that could be used to give you passive income, massive amounts of monthly cash flow, and the financial freedom that a lot of people desire. So when you're talking to people, Dan, I'm curious here, what are some of the objections or obstacles people go through in their minds or with their emotions when they're considering accessing equity in their home?
Great question. We get this a lot. We run into clients who, listen, number one, it's a great thing. I always tell it's a great thing that you've paid off your mortgage. Okay, let's start there. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Oftentimes we spend our lives dreaming of the day that our mortgage is paid off, so we never have a payment anymore. So I understand that, but it's a change of thinking in terms of leveraging the equity in your home. You're not necessarily adding debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt, and this is leveraging it. So certainly getting past that mental block sometimes of, well, I've paid off my house and I don't want to go back and add a mortgage onto it. It's a different state of mind here. Penalties, that's another one. With rates so low today, a lot of clients, had the opportunity to lock into interest rates previously, last 2-3 years where the rates may have been higher. So what happens today, if rates are somewhat lower, especially in fixed rates, is their penalty can be larger than normal. We have people that's, 10, 15, sometimes $20,000 penalty. And that number alone can scare people away from reaccessing capital. But what people need to understand is, number one, you may not need to break that mortgage depending on the lender you're with. There's different ways to come back and reaccess money, which again, we'll go over in the master class. Sometimes breaking that mortgage and paying the penalty can make a lot of sense. It's really about doing your numbers. I mean, look, paying a $10,000, $20,000 penalty may seem like a lot today, but if it's getting you access to money that you're able to then reinvest to make more money, sometimes that can make sense as well. So it's really sitting down, Paul, with a finance person, somebody like myself, or somebody focused on real estate investing, and really just going over the numbers and the options you've got available.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. And now I never dive into details because I leave that stuff to you when I send clients to you. But the way I explain it to them is, if you have a big penalty, it's simply like an investment. If it's going to cost you $20,000, but you're going to get this ROI, is it worth it or not? And if it's not, it's not. And if it is, well, then it's in front of you. It's the cost of doing business.
100%. I mean, look at the example. If you have someone, and this comes across a lot, where people maybe don't have $100,000 in savings and they do want to access equity from their home, but they're not up for renewal for another 16 months, let's say 18 months. So they may say, well, look, rather than pay this $20,000 $600,000 penalty. I'm going to wait a year and a half. And when my mortgage is up for renewal, I can avoid the penalty, and then I'm going to reinvest in real estate. Well, Paul, I think you could probably comment better than most on this. If you're buying a $600,000 house today, what's the chances that that house is only going to be worth maybe $20,000 more to offset that penalty? Probably pretty low, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to touch your point, exactly like you said, it's a short-term cost for a long-term gain.
Right. And another important point is that I'm seeing most people's savings and their ability to invest is coming from the equity they've already built. You know, the reality is that, you know, people in the Southern Ontario area, you can't save money fast enough to keep up with the way real estate where real estate is heading. And the inflation adjusted values of your home is, you know, doing 10 times the saving for you. So that's where the savings are. And we want to be able to access that, because the equity is like fuel. If you were building a Ferrari race car, if your portfolio was a Ferrari race car, the equity in your home is like the fuel we're going to put into the car. Is that right? Is that a cheesy analogy?
Yeah, 100%. You nailed it. And that's a really good point. One of the things that, you know, people ask, well, what's driving, you know, one of the things that's contributing to driving the market, and it's cheap money. I mean, rates are low. We know the cost of housing has gone up, but rates and the cost of money has stayed relatively low. So yes, coming back and reaccessing money from your property at, you know, home equity lines of credit are prime plus a half today, you know, so 2.45 plus a half, 2.95 on $100,000 borrowed on that line of credit. It's $245 a month of interest only payments.
Yeah.
You know,
that's interesting. So yes, so you have to factor in that interest payment, but if you're buying properties at cash flow, we can show you the formula where we kind of negate those payments, but still leave you kind of cash flow in the end. Right.
Well, and you nailed it too, Paul. Sorry, I went to comment on this as well. You said, you know, driving the market, people are coming back and reaccessing money. You know, we worked with investors that bought 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And the speed that these investors can come back and reaccess $100,000-$200,000, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could be making $150,000 a year, you know, combined income $200,000 a year. And how long do you think it would take the average person to save 150 grand in hard cash? Years. It's going to take years. So you're comparing that to people that own real estate. If it's appreciating at, say, you know, if we're in Southern Ontario, being conservative, correct me if I'm wrong, area depending, but maybe 10% would be a fair number to expect, 8 to 10%. So again, you know, you take a $600,000 house in 3 years, that's potentially $180,000 plus in terms of value. Well, these investors are going to come back and say, well, how do I access that $180,000? I want that money. That's 3 years of just equity appreciation.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic point. Now, a few of the investors that you've worked with, another point I want to bring up, they've come back and told me that they've refinanced, and not only were they able to access equity in their home or put a line of credit on their home, but their payments actually went down. How did that?
Well, you can stretch back out amortization. You know, amortization is an important thing for investors, especially on rental properties. You know, don't be scared of things like a 30-year amortization. That can help, you know, extend, obviously, your cash flow, right? The lower the payment, the longer the amortization. Again, things we'll talk about in the masterclass, how we can offset the higher interest, because on a 30-year am, we're going to have a higher interest payment, which isn't necessarily a negative, depending on what the accountant says. So there's different strategies for sure, but certainly lowering that payment, you know, 5 years into a mortgage, you're on a 25-year am. Well, you set that amortization back to 30 years, depending on the rate, you could have yourself a lower payment and the cash in hand.
Yeah. And if you had a rate at 2.8 and now you're going down to a rate of, what would you guys get me? 1.6 or something? Like,
yeah, anywhere between 1.5% and 2%, just depends on the lender. You know, lenders vary.
Yeah, I think that the main message here, and we'll make this our final point, and I know, spin this in your own words too, is that we have to get people out of that mindset where they think, I get a mortgage, I pay off a mortgage. I get a mortgage, I pay off a mortgage, where I want to teach people to use it as a tool to increase their wealth and increase their cash flow. If we use it as a tool to help us, then our whole perspective on it changes and how we see the debt. Does that make sense?
100%. And one thing my dad used to say to me when I was a kid that didn't make a lot of sense when I was younger, but makes the most sense now, is you got to get your money working for you. And that's exactly what this is. When you're sleeping at night, your house, your money is working for you. And that's the goal in finance. Leverage deductible debt, acquire assets, and let them appreciate while you're sleeping at night.
And make sure they cash flow. So we'll leave it on that strong point, Dan. I appreciate you doing this intro. I wanted to give people an idea of what they're going to learn here. But most importantly, we're going to tie this all in. So after Dan's finished his presentation, I'm going to take you through real life examples of people who are using their line of credit, and we're helping them facilitate and find these cash flowing properties, and take you through a real life timeline of someone doing that, and to show you the results, just so you don't think we're making up stuff here. I know a lot of you already know that we're not, but for those of you who are want to challenge us, I want to show you the real life results. I love to make it real. So I want to see you on October 23rd, 9 a.m. If you can't make it, it will be recorded. Don't worry. Zoom's fantastic for that. And I'll send you the recording within about 48 hours. Dan, I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure. We can't wait. Looking forward to it. See everybody then.
See you, buddy.